Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again, as if we never left. It's the Black Psychologist Podcast, also known as the Eighth Wonder of the World. Appreciate everyone being here with us today. You could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here tuning into us, and we're grateful for that. I am one half and your humble, gracious host, Dr. Kyle Osborne. He is I, and I am him. And of course, all of our longtime viewers and listeners know I'm not flying this aircraft by myself. I'm here with the one and only Mama ain't raised no fool. Put him anywhere on God's green earth and he'll triple his worth. The undisputed, undefeated champion psychologist of the world, Dr. Jason Coleman. What's going on, good brother?
My man, what's good, bro? How you been, man?
I'm good, man. We're here. We in full spring mode. Spring, man. Definitely, the weather's breaking. No more hailstorm. Hopefully, we're doing all right. What's up with you?
Chilling, man. Just enjoying, a couple of these 60-degree days. So I'm happy about that. Happy to be back doing like a semi-regular kind of schedule thing. And of course, just want to thank everybody that takes the time to listen. Appreciate everybody that's been riding with us and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely, yes. Please, we've been getting a lot of good feedback and conversations and things in the comments. So everybody that's on the DSPs, appreciate you guys listening, watching, subscribing, continuing to like and comment. Jay, you just brought up a good idea, or just kind of activated a thought. It's nice and warm. So absolutely, while you're continuing to get your mind right, you also want to look right. So make sure you go to shopmentalhealthclothing.com. So when, it's that time of season, sun's out, guns out, and you can feel good with your mental health. You know what I mean? There you go.
My man. And let everybody know where they go if they want to make their, in addition to looking good, if they want to make their heart and their self feel good, if they, donate to Cammy's Closet, where do they go?
Well, I'm happy you mentioned that, good brother. Because here we are. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're getting ready to do a quick donation later on this week. So this is, again, donating some hoodies, some sweatpants, some thermal shirts, flip-flops. We're going to be donating to another homeless shelter down in Philadelphia. That's Cammy's Closet Community Clothing Project. It's a nonprofit that myself and my partner that we co-founded late last year, and this is going to be our third donation coming up. We're really excited about it. More clothes for the homeless population and for those that are in need. So absolutely, we encourage those to please, fund and contribute. Again, we give brand new clothing, brand new free clothing package, never worn, to the homeless population. So go to cammyscloset.org. That's KAMIS closet.org. There are links. Cammy's Community Closet on social media. Yeah, man. Trying to make a little bit of a difference out there. So, a lot of times when people want to give back to the homeless population, we see people on the street. You don't have money. This is another alternative. So appreciate you highlighting that, good bro.
Hey, listen, man, everybody check it out. And y'all, y'all doing y'all thing. It's a true hustler right here. He always has the product right there on deck.
It is.
And listen, check out the Instagram page. Y'all doing y'all thing for real. So that's what's up.
Appreciate that. All right, let's get it going because we got a lot of things to get to, right? All right, so let's start on the political end. All right, Jay. So 3 North Carolina Republicans are supporting the efforts to do away with participation trophies in government-run youth sports leagues. All right. So the GOP-backed bill that was filed last week would bar local government and operated youth sports or recreational groups from giving awards for participants based solely on their participation. All right. And restricts awards to those that are based on identified performance achievements. So the proposed ban, of course, will require the support of the state Senate, the House, and would need a signature from the North Carolina governor, Roy Cooper, in order for it to become a law. One of the proponents, or one of the aforementioned Republicans for the bill, said the reason for the bill goes past sports, right? So what he said during an interview, he says, we're not teaching our children, he said, what we're not doing is teaching our children is to be prepared for life, but be prepared for failure. He added, when kids are growing up, they're being taught that it's okay just to be okay, and you don't have the best, or you don't have to be the best. So of course, the alternative, or some of the other different individuals that are still for participation trophies, says competition is fine and acknowledging who ran the fastest or threw the ball farthest is all good. He said, but why in the world would you want everyone to have that sense of community and belonging? It's preposterous and a colossal waste of time. So that's what the opposite folks on the opposite aisle are saying about having or keeping participation trophies. Jay, where do you fall, and what's your take on this?
I mean, listen, I don't want to get too crazy with it. I do think, the fact that we're kind of talking about this particular issue, it's a little extreme of a move in this case, right? In terms of, trying to get a bill through where all government, sports, where we're outlawing it, right? I think it's a little extreme because there's too many different sports, too many different cases. Like, you can cut this issue up too many different ways, right? And what I mean is, do I think that competition in sports should be eliminated in general? Absolutely not, right? I think there's valuable lessons in competition. I think if somebody comes in first, there's a distinct difference between somebody that comes in first, who's the winner, and somebody who comes in fourth, that maybe just work just as hard, but they need to work harder if they want to become first, right? That's cut and dry. Those are scores, rankings. That's kind of how society functions in general, right? So there's an argument that taking that away is not preparing children for what the real world kind of has, which means setbacks, right? And failures at times. But it's a little bit extreme of a view, because I am of, the belief that, if we're all on the same football team, right? We're all on the same wrestling team. We're all on the same baseball team, right? We're gonna have guys and girls on that team that might be junior varsity, right? That might not get a chance to start, right? We expect them to support the other teammates when they score, cheer for them. These are the people that get, the stars ready in practice. These are the people that they're practicing against. Iron sharpens iron. So am I against, at the end of the year, voting best practice squad player, giving everybody a certificate for being a part of the team, that sense of community? No, right? But that's very different than everybody's an MVP, you know what I mean? So that we don't hurt anybody's feelings. So I'm not gonna get too crazy with this. I think it's a little extreme because I think the individual coaches and teams should have enough autonomy, and we should be reasonable enough as adults to know the difference between, like, giving somebody a certificate to acknowledge their participation and giving everybody a trophy.
So for me, participation trophies are great and beneficial for, like, promoting inclusivity, right? So I'm okay with them up into a certain age or developmental point, for the reason that, let's be honest. Like, I feel like, as like, kids are way smarter than we're giving them credit for, right? They're way more aware of their social surroundings. Like, kids know when you get to a certain age, when other kids have more skill on the court or on the field, right? Your children know that participation trophies aren't the same as winning first place, like you were saying. Some kids are gonna get, like, the solo parts in the class play or in the orchestra, and others won't, right? Somebody's gonna be the star player, and you're gonna have some folks that are on the bench or just role players or what have you. So I feel like we're insulting their intelligence, and we're kind of not giving them the credit that's due as adults if we're going to sit here and say, like, oh, well, by the time they get in grade school or middle school, let's just give everybody a certificate or a trophy and act like they don't know the difference. Like, parents, it's always been this notion that, oh, well, we're trying to spare them, we're trying to keep everyone involved. Like, no, like, they're aware of that. Like, giving them a trophy is not going to make them feel much better and like, oh yeah, like, no, they know that they're on the team, right? They know that Jimmy is the best player, or yeah, they know who's who. Like, like, who really works hard. Like, oh, so-and-so is really good. Like, you don't need to, at the end of the year, and be like, oh, here, you know what? for like you're saying, these whether it's JV or varsity, like, oh, well, you were on the team, so you get the trophy, you get a trophy too. Like, no, like that we don't need to do that. I feel like we're kind of already, it's redundant at that point. So after a certain age where kids are just kind of running around and they're not really doing anything, like on the soccer field, like I feel like that's cool. Everybody gets a trophy. All right, that's that. But once as you're getting older and older, you're getting at 6, 7, 8 years old, I don't think it's necessary because it defeats the purpose, right? We're beyond that inclusivity aspect and trying to make them feel good about being on the field. You know what I mean?
Yo, I'm glad you said that, right? And I'm gonna just wrap it up with this. Like, I'm 100% on board with you, right? Because as you was talking, I wrote down first grade, third grade, and what I agree with you about, especially is when you said age at a specific age of developmental point, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's an extreme move because we already have things already in place. Because you don't hear about in mass, right? Every sport I participated in as a young kid, right? In T-ball, like they kind of kept score, but if the score got up too high, then they stopped keeping score, right? Yeah. Basketball, soccer, if you're playing like up until about second, third grade, if you're playing like another team and it's clearly a different like skill level, they cut the score off after a while.
Yeah, you get the whole mercy rule.
Because it's the mercy rule, right? And they even usually have that up until like elementary school to a certain degree, right? Mm-hmm. And that's usually just two reasonable adults, like looking over the sidelines, like, we just gonna let them play, like, right?
Get this, wrap it up.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, this kind of really sounds more to me like, sometimes politicians need an issue, like a hill to die on, and need an issue to kind of run on. Yeah. Maybe it's election time coming up, and whoever these politicians are specifically, like they kind of want some talking points and to talk about. A lot of times they introduce these bills knowing that they're never going to pass so that they can say they introduced the bill.
Yeah. It's and this argument's been going on for the betterment of 20, 30 years, right? As far as it is, and contrary to the idea that participation trophies keep kids from trying hard, or I feel like it does the opposite for the reason that, okay, like you said, one, they're at a certain level, right? So everybody knows what a participation trophy is. But generally speaking, like most kids want to stand out in some form or fashion, right? They don't want to just be on the team and getting the same trophy as everyone else, because again, it's like, all right, well, no, I want the MVP trophy, right? I want to be the best player on the team. Like, what sets me apart from other people? Like when little Timmy's in the driveway and he's practicing taking the final shot or hitting the last inning or game-winning home run, he's not practicing like he's on the bench passing it to the person. No, he's taking the shot, right? He's hitting that game-winning home run or throwing the game-winning touchdown. Like, this is what makes them want to work even harder, right? That's why I feel like, okay, if I want to be best, I want to set myself apart, right? And if I'm keeping with that same notion or the old age where they're like, oh, well, it keeps kids from trying. No, it doesn't. Like, kids want to stand out. Right? They want to be the person, they want to be the star of the team, generally speaking, of course. But like, you're going to have some people that are going to be role players, but you're going to have folks that want to rise above because they want to stand out in some form or fashion. So they might want to get the league MVP, or they might want to get whatever first place trophy in the race or whatever the situation is, right? Because it contributes to the competitive spirit, right? And that's what makes sports so rewarding and special, right? When you have people that are competing and training and practicing and so on and so forth. So I feel like, a lot of just those old notions and arguments are really like none and void, because I feel like they do the opposite.
I mean, listen, just to kind of wrap up on my end, I just, just in thinking about it, it's kind of like the whole conversation and term is a little bit hypocritical, right, in itself, because when somebody just says trophy or describe it, inevitably, one of the words that's going to come out is competition, winning. It's not going to be participation, right? So the whole word participation trophy is kind of like hypocritical and kind of like ironic all in one, right? Because it's kind of like polar opposites, right? Because participation, it should be more like a participation certificate. Trophy is for a ranking, in my mind. So. Yeah.
I mean, I would love, like I said, after it gets to a certain point, like I would love to go into a high school and you give a varsity player or something a participation trophy or a certificate, right? I would love to see what their reactions are going to be. Like, man, get that out of my face.
Right.
All right. So speaking of competition, this past Sunday, all right, it was the NCAA Women's Championship basketball game. Jay, did you watch?
Of course.
All right. So it was between, for those of those individuals that didn't see the game, it was a championship title game between LSU and Iowa. So LSU defeated Iowa in a very highly anticipated game. It was a great game, which saw two of college's star players. I'm talking about men and women. Like, these two players are very well known in college basketball. You have Caitlin Clark, who is like Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, like, merged in one. Like, she's like 2.0. Like, we're talking like female Larry Bird out here, right? That's how talented she is. And then we have for LSU, you have Angel Reese. All right. Angel Reese is a walking double-double. I mean, she's like a younger Lisa Leslie, Kevin Garnett out there. Like, she gets double-doubles, she eats the glass, gets putbacks and layups. Like, she's out there. All right. So this was a game that they were facing off. And since when they got matched up, like, this was a really high anticipated game. One moment late in the game, however, has been dominating the conversation in the aftermath of LSU's win. As time was winding down, LSU had the game in tow, and Reese was flashing the can't see me gesture to Clark, right? So that's for those people, that's the John Cena, you can't see me gesture. And she was doing like the ring as she was doing it towards her. So as the fallout from the game, Reese was subjected to a considerable amount of criticism from a lot of observers and from the media, who derided the gesture as they mentioned, or as a lot of people have been saying, classless and unsportsmanlike. Many other people perceived it as harmless and playful gesture among competitions or among competitors. Conversation has also sparked conversations about the racial double standards. Clark, who is white, used the gesture 2 games earlier in a winning bout against Louisville and was not subjected to any type of critiques. And now that Reese has been as a Black woman. So Caitlin Clark actually just recently came out in response to the criticism that Angel's been getting. And her quote was, "I don't think Angel should be criticized at all, no matter what way it goes. She should never be criticized for what she did. I compete, she competed. It was a super, super fun game. I think that what's going is going to bring more people to our game," end quote. All right. So clearly, if Caitlin doesn't feel that Angel should be criticized, I feel like that's one reason that should lend itself to be like, well, what are we talking about, right? If the person that the gesture was directed at doesn't have an issue with, I feel like other people shouldn't have an issue also. I saw it in real time as I was watching. Like I said, the game was completely entertaining. They were going back and forth. Like, it was a great game, like completely as good as advertised. And I don't know if this is maybe because of my background, like in sports. You know, you and I, Jay, we watch a lot of sports, right? We're heavy sports fans. We grew up playing sports. So I don't know if this is that component that's also lending itself to kind of like my perspective on it. But I didn't see an issue with the gesture or the gloating or the trash talking, however people want to describe it as, for the reason, like they mentioned, like Caitlin did it earlier in the tournament, right? She did it a couple games prior to it. I think it was like the Elite Eight game that they were playing against Louisville. And she was also during the game displaying like trash talking, right? Like, she would like a couple times in the game, the person that she was guarding, like, she would flag him, right? Like, she would flag him like, yeah, go ahead and shoot. So while her trash talking, her gestures were more subtle, right? They weren't as overt. Trash talking is trash talking,
I mean,
right? Whether you're doing the can't see me, or you're flagging somebody off, or she was doing it, like, trash talking is trash talking. So you know what I mean? It's unfair, you know.
bro, I mean, I know I don't think you're trying to do this, but don't let anybody convince you that any of this conversation is about
No.
people being upset about trash talk on the court. You understand? And people being upset about sportsmanship and aggressive behavior, quote unquote, right? Half of these people that are complaining write and watch hockey, right? They write about and they watch hockey, right? So there's holes in the boat already, right? Second, it's not about trash talk, bro. Like, if we know basketball is one of the sports where, from playing in our backyards to college to the NBA, we all know that trash talk comes with the territory.
Absolutely.
Right? There wasn't even this much controversy, to be quite honest, about Shannon Sharp trash talking with Dylan Brooks. Right? There wasn't this much controversy about that. It's about who's doing the trash talk. You understand? Bro, I did not hear any of these complaints because I watched the whole tournament, right? Mm-hmm. Caitlin Clark, who's a great player, right? She is a beast out there. The whole South Carolina team, the whole game, you know what I'm saying? She was talking trash to everybody. It's a part of her game. Right. Anybody who follows her knows that she's a trash talker, right? And her game is nasty, so she talks trash, right? So after they beat South Carolina, we saw none of these complaints. They were talking about how confident she is, right?
Yeah.
How boisterous she
her
is.
Swag. Oh my God, look at her swag and the confidence.
All of her swag, all of these things, right? And then when she loses, right, we have a harsh and immediate reaction to her opponent doing the same exact thing to her, right? And that's what it's about. It's about who it's coming from. You know, coming from Angel Reese, all of a sudden we're having a conversation about professionalism on a basketball court and nobody touched each other. Are you serious? Mm-hmm. They're not out there playing in suits. You know what I mean? And this is competition, and this is my opponent, you know? And you saw people, person after person, melt down and make a fool out of themselves, right? Because the person that they wanted to win lost, starting with Keith Olbermann, right? But I think what you start to see is the reason why people are insulted now is because, again, you have the First Lady of the United States actually suggesting, right, that these women, the winners, should share their spotlight with the losers because she likes the losers more, right?
Sounds like participation trophies right there. That's what it sounds like.
And you're right, but it's even more than that, right? Because it's insulting on another level, because never in history would anybody suggest, right, that going to the White House is a privilege for the winners only, right? So never in history would anybody suggest, you know, that the loser should come along, right? And so when you start looking at the contrast and how the behaviors are treated, how these teams have been written about all year, right? You start seeing black and white all over the place, right? So we can't just dismiss people of color as emotional when they get upset and they're looking at Joe Biden like, yo, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you suggest that? There's no other situation. And it's not about Caitlin Clark just being the best women's basketball player that we've ever seen, bro. Because, listen, we've lived through Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Cheryl Swoops. Listen, Aaliyah Boston is the #1 draft pick coming out. Like, let's not be crazy, bro. Let's not be crazy. I'm not saying she's not good, you know what I mean? But we know what happens sometimes with athletes in certain sports when they show some promise, even if they're only just average. And I'm not suggesting that Caitlin Clark is average, but what I'm suggesting is that people have to kind of look a little bit beneath the surface at some of the people that are coming out of the blue and supporting her, and then they got to look at her reaction to it, because I think she kind of is looking around too and saying something ain't right going on. That's why she's doing these interviews saying Angel Reese was well within her rights to respond like that. Right. So it's not the basketball people that are reacting like this. It's other people, you know.
There's the additional element, right? Because clearly you have the underlying racial component. Do you think that if this were the men's tournament and this was going on, would we be even having a conversation about this?
No, if this was the men's tournament, right, and we had some young star that was emerging, right, and he was doing the John Cena, they would have been talking about NIL money, right, and they would have been talking about endorsements and probably commercials with John Cena. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody is working on it right now with Caitlin Clark and Johnson.
Oh yeah, no, there was definitely a tweet that came out like a couple games before where he tweeted at her and everything. And that's the thing.
Let's not play. If this was a male athlete, they would be trying to turn it into a bag already. There wouldn't be conversations about professionalism, bro.
And that's the additional double standard, right? So you have a couple different things that are taking place here where, because one, she's a female, Black female, like you said, we're talking about professionalism. We're talking about all these other different things. Like, we have to think about it. Like, this was one of the most watched games in history of their sport, right? Just because of these two individuals. And now it's a situation where the moment that they're allowing themselves to express themselves emotionally during a basketball game, right? Let's keep this in mind. This is a basketball game. This is a competitive sport, right? We have to keep in mind that when they're expressing themselves, now it's an issue. Right now, we're throwing all these other different negative labels as far as unsportsmanlike, classless, so on and so forth. But again, if it's not the men's, we're not having this conversation.
But we got to remember, not they. It's Angel Reese.
Well, Angel Reese, exactly, right?
Her because again, you had all of these people melt down, and then when they were educated, right? Then when they had people inboxing them videos of Caitlin Clark, basketball people who watched Iowa all year, educating them. Then they walked it back and tried to save themselves so it wouldn't be entirely racial. And they said, oh, we think that it's disgraceful for anybody to showboat. Like, come on, listen. The rules of baseball do not apply to any other sport. So let's stop playing. This is not baseball or golf. It's not baseball and it's not golf. So we don't expect that type of decorum with basketball. Like, stop playing.
I didn't like it for the reason that this overshadows their win, right? Because they worked hard. A lot of people didn't pick LSU to win this. A lot of the favorites were, of course, South Carolina, Iowa, other different teams. They worked hard, right? Because Angel's she's a transfer. She just came from the transfer portal, right? Because she came from Maryland. So I feel bad because everything is being shifted and all the criticism is being shifted towards her, where it's like, you know what? No, they actually had a decent team the year, right? They won the championship. This is their first championship in school history. Like, you have a lot of players that stepped up and played really hard, and all of this unfortunately is getting more publicity, is being overshadowed by this. Where honestly, I feel like, again, like, you have these non-basketball related historians, pundits that are coming in that are throwing out all these other different labels, but this is good for their sport. Like, you want their players to be more, you know what I mean? Be more, I guess, is the term that's being thrown around, is authentically themselves. Like, you want this, right? You want this personalities, because this is what's driving the game. This is what pushes money, right? This is how you get sponsoring. This is how you get funding. Like, I'm happy to see all of this. I'm happy to see Caitlin talk to this man. I'm happy to see Angel Reese. I'm happy to see all of them, right? Because this is the personality that drives the sport. Again,
no, you're right, because it overshadows the real story of the week. Should have been that all of us, especially myself, who haven't been watching women's basketball, are fools and got a big education due to this tournament. Absolutely. Meaning, I'm gonna be locked in next year. You know what I mean? So that should have been the story this year, is that we got Angel Reese, we got Caitlin Clark, we got Aaliyah Boston. Like, we got powerhouse teams, not just Tennessee and UConn. It's a whole bunch of women's teams, and that the basketball is exciting, and we all talking about it. Yeah. That's what it should have been about, and it should have been shame on everybody, including me, that was late, right? Absolutely. But what are we talking about instead? We talking about some BS. So I'm gonna leave it there.
It's unfortunate, man. So, but shout out and total acknowledgement, great work to the LSU women's basketball team. Great season. Absolutely, will be locked in next year, watching them along with all the other different women's teams. So, moving right along. Jay, are you ready? There's a new TikTok challenge. All right. So, from the not so bright people that brought us the Tide Pod challenge and the Blackout challenge, we now have the BORG challenge, right? And BORG is an acronym for Blackout Rage Gallon. All right. So what this is, for those people that aren't aware of what BORG is, it's in which a gallon jug, or a water gallon, is filled with mostly alcohol, often vodka, and Gatorade and water. So people have gotten creative with this. They've used like pop culture puns to name their jugs. And when they do it, they get on like TikTok and they're using their BORGs at parties and so on and so forth. So some of the creative names that they've come have been included as Borg to be wild, LeBorg James, legally Borg, right?
Did you say the board game?
Hey, LeBorg James, listen, man, I like you got to give them credit. They're very creative and they're hilarious with this, right? As you know, out of pocket and as foolish as this challenge is, they're very creative. I'll give them points for that. All right. So this challenge all came to a head because it's been going on for the better part of the year, but it all came to a head during this past St. Patrick's Day when 46 students from UMass at Amherst were hospitalized and 28 ambulances responded to the campus. All right. So look, let's call this what this is. All right. I'm not gonna be like this is incredibly dangerous for obvious reasons, right? We all know that. If as clinicians, I think anybody that is looking at a jug or a gallon that's filled mostly with alcohol and a little bit of Gatorade and water, we all know that this is not a bright idea, right? we know that for obvious reason. Now, I'm not gonna be the old man, get off my lawn, yelling at the clouds. College kids shouldn't be drinking, blah blah blah. Like I'm not gonna be that guy. All right. Because it's college, right? We know kids are drinking in college. That's what happens. That's what takes place, so on and so forth. Um, and you know, generally speaking, right? Many people, especially college students, don't know how much alcohol they can drink before it gets to that level, right? That's just generally speaking, but especially college students, right? Like I'm all for, hey, you know, it's St. Patty's Day or it's whatever event or whatever taking place and you want to get drunk. Cool, cool, cool. You know what I mean? Like we've all been there. My concern is more for college students to kind of understand that alcohol blackouts are often more dangerous than they think, right? So the average jug is equivalent, they said, to about 17 shots on average, right? 17 shots. We know again how dangerous it is in regards to your liver and so on and so forth. But I'm thinking more like just the blackout aspect of it, right? Just the psychological and memory aspect. So for people that don't know as far as what a blackout pertains to, let me do a quick little psychoeducation, right? So pretty much when you black out, that means you drank too much alcohol too fast. Your blood alcohol has significantly risen very quickly. And that pretty much what that does, that shuts off your hippocampus and you stop creating long-term memories at that particular time, right? So your memory is shot. So literally like the next day you wake up, you don't have any memory, right? That's the whole point of a blackout. Like you have no idea what took place. Like you're not going to get those memories back. They're not going to return later on when you sober up. Like there are no memories there. That's the dangerous part. The other aspect of it is since they're mixing it up, I think with caffeine, like the Gatorade or the caffeine from the Gatorade. Now the caffeine is a stimulant, right? So like any stimulant, it kind of blunts your response to alcohol. So you might have 3 or 4, 5 drinks or swigs, as they call it, and you kind of feel like alert, but your blood alcohol is still rising. When you have blackouts, and anyone that's had a blackout, you have no memory of what took place. That's the dangerous part of it because you don't know what's taking place from whenever you blacked out or you stopped remembering shit to when you woke up in that morning or the next following morning or wherever you are. And that's for me where the dangerous aspect comes in because now you've left yourself in a very vulnerable position. You see what I mean? Anything can take place, anything can happen, especially in college. Like Jay, and I know things go down at college. And you got a lot of kids doing a lot of impulsive things, and this is how things get out of control, and you have no memory of it. And you're trying to put things together through other people's recollections who also have a crappy memory because they were drinking Borgs too. So that's more the area and the concern that I'm coming from as far as like, my concerns with just the blackout element, because it's not a good position to be in when you don't know what took place like less than 24 hours ago. You know what I mean?
Right. Now I get. I mean, listen. This is more for me, like more informational purposes. So I'm not gonna say too much about this. It's one of these things where I think social media is making it worse, right? Because it's a trendy thing now on TikTok. So you could see like I could see fraternity sororities kind of picking it up and people, just kind of kind of doing it around the country at certain universities, probably more than others. I mean, listen, it's a strange scene, right? When you look at some of these videos on YouTube with 50, 100, 200 kids all holding jugs, different colors with names written on them. I mean, come on, call it what it is. It's BORG. You want to name it that. I mean, it's just accelerated binge drinking.
Yep.
But the problem you're going to have if you're really, like, if you're putting a fifth, essentially, in some cases, into, like a gallon jug and then diluting it. Again, the problem you're going to have with all the stuff you're mixing up is you may not feel as intoxicated as you are, right? And then let's be honest, with the atmosphere, there's going to be more. You see why there was 28 trips, transports to the hospital, right? Because you're going to have a lot of scares for alcohol poisoning because, again, just peer pressure alone, you're going to have people playing games that empty the jug. You're going to be pouring it in people's mouths, so it's, again, we're talking about accelerated binge drinking, right? You don't even have to walk back to the bar and get another drink. You don't even have to go back to the store and get another drink, right? So, this is going to be a problem. And I think even more than the alcohol poisoning, which is probably a big consideration, is just the after effects, right? So you could probably have a lot of DUIs, DWIs, people hurting themselves from falling, you know what I mean?
Right. And
in the blackout stuff, right? So again, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, but I think it's something we're gonna have to revisit because it's something I think is gonna spread like wildfire. I could see it spreading just like that cinnamon challenge and all of that.
Yeah.
And if you're in that atmosphere, it's gonna be something that you probably want to do, So, or it might be something that you are kind of, wanting to do. So
yeah, that's the scary part because TikTok and some of the other social media forms, with these challenges, they normalize it, right? They normalize it and they glorify it. And like you said, it increases the prevalence. And the aftermath aspect that's the scary part for me, right? Like you mentioned, what's taking place during that blackout time, because typically just because you don't remember doesn't mean things aren't happening. And like you said, people are driving, people are falling, people are getting into fights, all of these other different things that you have no recollection of, and people are going ham. That's one of the the benefits of having a kid. Well, it's a benefit and it's a scary thing, right? Of having a kid in college, right? So baby girls up there at a PWI, and I touch base with her like, yo, like what's happening up here? Like, is that going down? She's like, oh yeah, dad, like they're getting it in up here, like on the BORG thing. And she's just like, it's funny because she says you just see it just quickly like escalate when people got them. Like they're out there heavy with them. And like they're out in public, they're out anywhere. I mean, you're on campus, right? So they're at different parties, they're at other different spots, like in the area. And she's like, they're going ham. And so, like you said, it's funny because you can see how intoxicated, how quickly people get, and then just the behaviors just go from there.
Sure.
So it's that's the dangerous aspect of it, man. And it's really scary. It's something I try to impress upon her is like, try your best not to put yourself in a vulnerable position, because that's once the blackout thing, like you're not you're that whatever the tequila or whatever you're drinking is in there. That's what's happening, and it's a really unsafe situation. Now there are a couple benefits, right? I don't want to be completely that guy. All right. There are a couple benefits. I feel like it does give you some sort of more of a sort of control, right? So if you're making your own drink, we kind of talked about it earlier. If you have your own drink, there's also kind of reduces the chance or likelihood that you can have your drink spiked, right? Because if you got it in your hand the whole time, then it's less likely that somebody could put something in your drink. So that is one benefit. Jay, you mentioned something a little earlier before we got on air. Is talking about like you can kind of control the content in your jug. You know what I mean?
I mean, I was kind of making a joke, joking with you, man. Like,
It's
but
a little truth. There's some
I
truth to it.
understand the sentiment, right? Like, so the preventionist was talking about, you can kind of go out there and act like you have a board and pour like water, Gatorade, caffeine, and then like a little bit of liquor or no liquor in there. And I'm joking with you, like, where you could pour one shot in there and with the whole gallon and everything else, just nurse it all day. Now the odds of we laughing, right? Because obviously when we were in that environment, we engaged in the alcohol consumption, but there's probably a student or two out there that, in another, without that might give them a little bit more comfort, right? Because say they're of a religious orientation, or they're just from a conservative family, or they're doing certain things for their health or whatever, and they don't want to drink, that might be an option. Now they don't have to miss the party or whatever festival. They can going out there and be drinking Gatorade all day and nobody knows. So don't listen to me on that one. But
there's a couple of people that they maybe they're not as heavy drinker, but and I know that social component is very influential, right? Like again, you don't want to miss out on the party. You don't want to look like, for a lack of a better term, like you're the square, you're the cornball that's not drinking. So like you said, you can perpetrate, right? You can control, maybe you pour a couple of things in there. It's not as much alcohol content as it is. So there is some aspect of it for, depending on the individual, for you to kind of control that. So, a little bit, but I'm not endorsing this at all. So please be safe out there with those Borgs. That's the best I can do. Please be safe. Practice the buddy system. And do not drive or anything else or any other type of heavy machinery. All right, Jay. So listen, it's springtime. All right, as we talked about earlier. So every now and then, we not only are we doctors of psychology, but we are also doctors of love. And Dr. J and I are here to tell you how to get yourself and how to cope with a situationship. All right. Now, for those of you that don't know what a situationship is, it is defined as a romantic or sexual relationship that isn't formally defined. However, let's have a real conversation, Jay. All right, let's call this what it is. All right, this is really friends with benefits, F buddies, or booty call. Right. That's really what this is. All right. So that's what a situationship is. So typically, people in a situationships generally aren't exclusively committed to each other. Typically they aren't expected to fork over a ton of emotional investment. However, while this is casual, non-committal intimacy may have its benefit for some people at certain stages in their lives, but it also comes with its share of conflict and uncertainty and could be painful to walk away from. So if this applies to you out there, all of our listeners and watchers and viewers, we got you covered with 3 things from Psychology Today that can help you move on once you or your friend with benefits has decided to end the situationship. All right. So the first one that they came up with, they said, is allow yourself to grieve. They said you might think that you have no right to feel sad or upset when the situationship ends because you believe the relationship was never real in the first place. But they said, here's the thing. Just because someone you associated with romantically or sexually was never considered to be your real part, like those air quotes, all right, doesn't mean that you can't be upset when the person is no longer in your life. Jay, do you agree with that? What do you think?
Oh, no, I agree with it totally, because I think people have to stop. All right, not stop, but I think a lot of times, right? And I'm not talking about every person, so please don't DM me with getting mad about it. But I think a lot of times what separates a relationship and a situationship is the word relationship, right? A label, right? For some people. And the only reason why I bring that up is because if you ask people what a relationship is about, they're going to describe their partner as meeting their needs, right? And they're going to describe their responsibility as meeting their partner's needs, right? And people get into situationships, booty calls, Friday night, my friend, whatever you want to call it, for a lot of different reasons, right? But they all boil down to getting a need met. It might be sex, it might be companionship, it might be friendship, it might be a rebound, you know, it could be a lot of different things. You could be in a certain stage of life where you're in school, working, and you just need certain needs met, but it comes down to needs, right? And one is going to be needs, you know, kind of without any obligation on the other person's behalf, and the other one's is going to be a responsibility to each other, right? With the label. So I think when you look at it like that, right, then you can give anybody in a situationship room to grieve and kind of talk about how that relationship has affected them. But again, when you make kind of feelings only exclusive to relationships, which is wholeheartedly incorrect, that's where you end up. You know, it's bizarro world, but that's where you end up. You know,
And that's the thing. Any type of interpersonal intimacy is going to activate some type of feeling or some form of connection, right? And you have some people that are better at managing it than others. You have some folks that might catch feelings from the booty call or from the repeated whatever y'all situationship is. And when it's no longer there, yeah, you might feel a certain type of way. Somebody may. And I think it depends on how long it's been going on, the content or the exclusivity or whatever or what have you. And so no, there's a loss there, right? Even if it's just like you being able to rely on that particular situation is no longer there. Yeah, there's gonna be some loss there. So I absolutely say grief is involved there. The second one is get a different perspective. They said find someone you trust to talk to about your experience. Maybe you feel embarrassed about having been in the situationship in the first place, or you're worried about what other people may think. It's hard, but try to let that worry go and instead identify a person in your life with whom you trust and respect, and share the story with them. I agree with that. Getting some support, I feel the key word is reliable, healthy person. All right.
yeah.
Especially depending on how the situationship ends. Every information is not for everybody, right? So you got some people that might be more judgmental, some people that might put your business out in the street that you was doing what with who, you was doing that with him, what? Right? So there's a reason why it was just a situationship, right? There was a reason why it was just in the friends with benefits, Netflix and chill booty call lane, right? So and again, you may feel a certain type of way. So getting a different perspective, I think healthy support that you can, someone that you can kind of vent to, that's not going to put your business out in the street and judge you. I feel like that's the way to go.
I agree. And then I think, you know, the reflection and then looking forward in terms of where your boundaries are going to be for the next situation, right? I think that's real important, right? Because that helps you kind of, if whether you're going to be in a relationship, whether you're going to be in a situationship, to be in it for the right reasons, right? So you can kind of know while you're in it, is this good for you, right? Because a lot of people, you know, whether it be males or females, would have issues with a situationship because I'm assuming that there's a fair amount of people, you know, who they're in a situationship because it's good for the other person. You understand what I'm saying? Whereas the alternative is a situationship or nothing. If that's the alternative, you know, then it's not a good situation. A situationship, you know, the expectations, you should be real about them, right? So
Yeah.
you and the person should be honest about your expectations, right? And I think that's one of the problems. I think some people are in situationships and it's a relationship of convenience for the other person, right? Or some people are in situationships and it's one-sided in the sense of, you know, they're going into the situationship hoping that it turns into something else, right? And the other person is like, yeah, I'm comfortable with this situationship, right? And what we do know is that inevitably it's going to lead to some type of emotional connection, or it can, right? And these situationships, relationships, you know, friends with benefits, they're all going to be equally hard. They all can be equally hard to kind of walk away from, in a sense, right? Because you're still sharing time, experiences, feelings. And this may sound controversial, but for some people, the situationship is going to be just as hard to walk away from the relationship with, because you'll be surprised how much you might share with a person when you don't have those expectations of them hurting you or leaving you or using something against you. Sometimes we work very differently, right? I'm sure we've all heard of some people, not all, but it's like there are things that they don't share with their partner, but they might share with their friend, or they might share with somebody that they don't even know as well as their partner, right? So that may fall under the umbrella of a situationship. It's like, yeah, the woman I've been with or the man I've been with for 15 years, if I tell him this, they're gonna judge me, or I'll let him down. But the person I just met, there's no expectations there, you know? So again, I just say that to say all of these things can contribute to, you know, these situationships, relationships, friends with benefits, you know, being kind of hard to walk away from because you form connections, your feelings involved, and there's an element of convenience there.
And that segues into our third one. It says, get some support from, reflect on the boundaries that matter to you. The end of the relationship comes with a major gift tucked inside the pain, the chance to learn and grow. Having stepped away from the situationship, you now have time and space to think about the lessons you can learn from the experience. And that hit it right there on the head. Absolutely use this opportunity to ask yourself some self-reflection questions. Like, are you built for this type of relationship or situation, right? What are the advantages and the disadvantages? You kind of touched on it earlier. Not everyone is built for this, right? For some people, like it might have been just that convenience. For other people, they had different intentions that this was going to grow into something. So this would be a good opportunity for you to ask yourself, all right, is this really me? Is this where I'm looking for? Is this kind of like how I'm holding myself, you know, in regards to importance, my own self-esteem, my own self-confidence? Am I settling? All these other different questions you should be asking yourself, like after you've gotten out of a situationship, of like, hey, how was this experience? Is this something you want to continue in this life? Do you want more intimacy? So on and so forth. Absolutely. You want to start pinpointing and doing some self-reflection regarding your boundaries and your value system. So it can be a learning experience.
Yeah, man, I agree. Again, I mean, I think it's fairly good advice, you know, some more obvious than, you know, others, but, you know, again, the key thing I kind of take out of this is, you know, I think there's a lot of like shame associated with some people with being in a situationship. And that's why I think as long as you're real with your expectations and, you know, you're not misleading a person, if it's meeting your needs, then, you know, there's no difference between that and any other relationship, if you ask me.
Very true. Very true. And that is your segment from The Love Doctors. You're welcome, America. This is how we roll. All right, Jay. Anything else? We covered a lot. Anything else before we get out of here?
Nothing much. Again, shopmentalhealth.com. Check out Cammy's Closet. And as always, want to thank my man for steering the ship. Excuse me, it's late. And just want to thank everybody that takes the time to listen all the way to the end. Send us messages of encouragement. We appreciate it. And please just continue to like the videos, comment, you know, leave your thoughts on the subject. We really appreciate it. All the feedback, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Continue to prioritize your mental health. We're wishing everybody good mental health. It's getting nice outside, so absolutely, we encourage everyone getting outside, get some fresh air, do some walking, some hiking, take advantage of the weather. Because it's absolutely has so many different physical and mental health benefits. Other than that, again, I'm going to echo what you already mentioned. Is we appreciate and love the support. Continue to tune in and subscribe and like and run off and tell a friend and share all that other good stuff. All right, Jay, this is how we do it.
All right, bro, till next one.
Yes, sir.
Later.